The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Merida Chen stepped through the crystalline archway, her diplomatic credentials glowing softly on her wrist display. Behind her, Gideon Torres carried the standard-issue containment case, his expression carefully neutral despite the weight of history on his shoulders. This was humanity's first official contact with the wider galactic community, and everything had to be perfect. Welcome, representative of Earth, chirped High Counselor Zixthar, their translator rendering the clicks and whistles into something comprehensible. The insectoid being's antennae twitched with what Merida had learned was polite curiosity. "We trust your journey through the void was comfortable?" "Very much so, Counselor," Merida replied, bowing slightly. "We're honored to finally join the community of spacefaring species." Around the circular chamber, representatives from 47 different worlds watched with varying degrees of interest. Some had crystalline bodies that refracted the ambient light. Others were gaseous beings contained in elaborate environmental suits. A few looked almost humanoid, though Merida knew better than to assume similarity meant anything about their psychology or culture. "Before we begin the formal proceedings," Merida continued, "I should mention that I've brought a companion, a harmless pet from Earth, as a gesture of goodwill and to demonstrate the biodiversity of our world." A ripple of interest passed through the chamber. Several species leaned forward, their various sensory organs focusing on the containment case Gideon held. "Fascinating," exclaimed Ambassador Krell, a reptilian being from the Draco system. "We've read about Earth's remarkable variety of life forms. Please show us this creature." Gideon caught Merida's eye and she gave him a subtle nod. They'd discussed this moment extensively during the 6-month journey to the Council station. The xenobiologist had assured them that a standard housecat posed no actual threat to any known species. It was a calculated diplomatic move, showing Earth's creatures as diverse but manageable. Gideon pressed the release mechanism, and the front panel of the case dissolved into transparent mesh. Inside, curled contentedly on a cushion, was Mr. Whiskers, a perfectly ordinary orange tabby cat. The reaction was not what they expected. High Counselor Zixthar's antennae snapped flat against their head. Ambassador Krell's scales flushed a deep purple that their briefing materials had indicated meant extreme alarm. Throughout the chamber, beings began backing away, some of them moving with surprising speed toward the exits. By the infinite void, someone shrieked, "It's a predator!" Another voice cried out, "Mr. Whiskers!" Disturbed by the commotion, opened one yellow eye and yawned, displaying a pink tongue and perfectly ordinary cat teeth. The chamber erupted into chaos. 3 representatives fainted outright. A crystalline being shattered itself into constituent particles and had to be vacuumed into an emergency containment unit. The Draco's ambassador was climbing the wall, literally climbing the wall with claws Merida hadn't known they possessed. "Please, everyone, calm down," Merida shouted, but her voice was lost in the pandemonium. Security alarms began blaring. Doors sealed automatically. A robotic voice announced in 17 languages that emergency protocols had been activated. Gideon, acting on instinct, sealed the containment case again. Mr. Whiskers disappeared behind the opaque panel, thoroughly annoyed at being disturbed. "What manner of death beast have you brought to this station?" Zixthar demanded, their usual composure completely shattered. They had pressed themselves into the far corner of their diplomatic booth. It's just a cat," Merida said, completely bewildered. "A house cat. We keep them as companions. Children play with them." "Children?" This came from Ambassador Vrel, a slug-like being whose skin had turned a concerning shade of gray. "You allow your offspring near apex predators?" Gideon shook his head. "Mr. Whiskers weighs 4 kilograms. He eats processed food pellets and spends 18 hours a day sleeping." "Look at its eyes," someone screamed. "Forward-facing. Binocular vision. Classic pursuit predator morphology. And those claws," another added. "Retractable killing instruments." Slowly Merida began to understand. She pulled up her datapad and started accessing the galactic database they'd been given access to upon arrival. She filtered for predator and apex predator and felt her blood run cold. In the entire Galactic Council, representing 47 civilizations spanning thousands of worlds, there were exactly 3 species classified as evolved from predator stock. All 3 were herbivores now, their predatory ancestors so far back in their evolutionary history, that only genetic analysis revealed the connection. There were 0 obligate carnivores. How is this possible? She whispered, scrolling through the data. The galaxy is full of life, and almost none of them are predators. Gideon was reading over her shoulder. Look at this. The only other confirmed predators in known space are the Zarth swarm, and they're classified as a galaxy-level threat. The Council has standing evacuation protocols just for them. Merida looked up at the terrified beings cowering around the chamber. She saw them with new eyes, species that had evolved on gentle worlds where cooperation, not competition, was the driving force of natural selection. Worlds where the biggest threat was resource scarcity, not being eaten. High Counselor, she said carefully, I apologize for the distress we've caused. We had no idea that predator species were so unusual. In galactic civilization, unusual? Zixthar's voice was slightly strangled. There are children's horror stories about creatures like that across 100 worlds. Eyes that track movement, claws for catching prey, teeth for tearing flesh. They shuddered. And you say you live with them? Not just live with them, Gideon said, a strange note of pride entering his voice. We selectively bred them, made them smaller, friendlier. We have dozens of varieties. The silence that followed this statement was profound. You domesticated an apex predator? Ambassador Krell had descended from the wall but remained at maximum distance. For companionship? And pest control, Merida added, then realized that might not help. Small pests. Like rodents. Rodents? Small mammals. They eat grain stores mostly. You have other small predators that you need larger predators to control? Zixthar's antennae were doing something complicated that the translator couldn't interpret. Merida exchanged a glance with Gideon. This was either going to be a disaster or something else entirely. High Counselor, she said slowly, perhaps we should discuss Earth's evolutionary history in more detail. I think there are some fundamental differences between our world and most others in the Council. Differences, Zixthar repeated weakly. Yes. You see, Earth is competitive, very competitive. We have predators at multiple levels of every ecosystem. The competition for resources drove rapid evolutionary development. It's why we developed technology so quickly once we gained sapience. And you're worried about us domesticating predators, Gideon added, understanding where Merida was going. But consider, we didn't just survive on a world full of predators. We became the apex predator of the entire planet. Then we decided some of the other predators were cute enough to keep as pets. The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. Finally, High Counselor Zixthar spoke, their voice barely above a whisper. Ambassador Chen, I think we need to discuss the terms of Earth's membership in the Galactic Council. And perhaps Earth's role in Council security forces. Inside his case, Mr. Whiskers began to purr, the sound amplified slightly by the containment unit speakers. Around the chamber, 47 species flinched at the rumbling growl of a satisfied predator. Humanity had just found its place in the galactic community, and it was far more significant than anyone had anticipated. ND